Dark clouds snarled across the moonlit sky as I made my way toward the old fortress perched on the edge of a treacherous cliff. Rain fell in merciless sheets, each droplet borne by howling winds that raked across the rocky path. Lightning split the heavens, illuminating the towering structure that rose like a phantom above the tumultuous sea. For a moment, I recalled the coastal hamlet below, where I had sought directions earlier that evening. Locals there whispered rumors of the distant castle, warning me of malevolent forces. Their eyes had grown wide at any mention of its ancient inhabitants, but no one would divulge more than ominous mutterings of darkness and eternal youth. My heart beat with an uncertain thrill, for I had traveled across half the country to unravel the truth behind this fortress of legend. Each clap of thunder drove me to hurry along, mindful of the dagger-like rocks beneath my feet. A single lantern, flickering in my grasp, threw dancing shadows against the castle walls. Its battered doors stood closed, but not barred. Despite the storm, I could almost sense a presence beyond the threshold, as though it waited for me. Lightning silhouetted tall turrets, their parapets peering over starlit waters. I raised my hand, intent on knocking, when the door groaned inward, ignoring my timid motion. A gust of wind swept inside, carrying with it the moan of the sea far below. I crossed over the threshold gingerly, troubled by the uncanny sense that I was expected. My few letters exchanged with the elusive Lord Ambrose had concluded with a cryptic invitation, scribbled in elegant script. Enter when the thunder calls. The vast foyer was lit by tarnished candelabras, the candles flickering, as if holding on to life by a tenuous thread. Ancient portraits hung on the walls, dark mine figures captured in oil, their gazes heavy with solemnity. The castle's interior, though grand in architecture, bore the weight of centuries. Cobwebs shrouded corners of balustrades, and a faint mustiness betrayed the infrequent presence of visitors. Yet, beneath the stale air lingered a faint perfume, something sweet and floral, reminiscent of bougainvillea blooms wilting under moonlight. I set down my lantern on a battered side table and removed my drenched overcoat. The floor groaned beneath my boots. Suddenly, from the far end of the hall, a figure emerged. His attire was of a bygone era, a velvet jacket, lace cuffs, and a carefully knotted cravat. He was pale, his complexion the color of porcelain, yet his features were serenely regal. There was something luminous about his eyes, which glimmered with a subtle, otherworldly sheen. "Welcome," he said, bowing his head in a courteous gesture. "I am Ambrose, lord of this estate. You must be the traveler who made inquiries in the village." His voice was congenial, though it carried a quiet weight, as though every syllable was honed with centuries of refinement. I confirmed my identity and explained in brief my fascination with the tales I had heard. He observed me with a polite smile as I spoke, his gaze reminiscent of a scholar scrutinizing a curious artifact. "The hour grows late," he said. "Please rest a while and join us for the evening meal." Before I could respond, Ambrose beckoned me onward, leading through a gallery adorned with tapestries depicting hunts and courtly gatherings. The faces in those tapestries bore a suspicious resemblance to the paintings in the foyer, and I felt as though 100 sets of eyes trailed my every step. The flicker of candlelight seemed to make the figures shift imperceptibly. Still, I pressed these unsettling impressions aside, attributing them to my fatigue. We arrived at a dining hall dominated by a long mahogany table set with gleaming cutlery and tall candles. At one end sat 2 figures, also dressed in outdated finery. A woman with raven black hair cascading down her shoulders, her red gown accentuating her pale neck, and an older man whose silver-threaded hair and neatly trimmed beard could not disguise a bearing that radiated timeless authority. Ambrose introduced them with a graceful bow, Lady Eveline, his sister, and the Baron, their father. Their politeness was almost too perfect, every gesture and phrase choreographed, with the refinement of aristocratic life long gone. I took a seat at Ambrose's suggestion and found a sumptuous meal laid before me. Roast pork, stewed vegetables, fresh bread, and red wine in a crystal goblet. The family, however, showed little enthusiasm for the food, sipping only occasionally at their goblets. Their conversations skittered across the surface of polite topics, my journey, the weather, the condition of the local roads, but never ventured to address the anomalies that had brought me here. Between the storms outside and the awestruck hush within, the atmosphere brimmed with a tension, neither warm nor welcoming. I tried probing for the origin of the legends, the rumors of their unending youth, the shadowy secrets that might lie behind these walls. But each time I neared the subject, the conversation veered away as elegantly as a dancer avoiding a misstep. At length, Lady Eveline rose from the table in a languid, graceful motion. "You are no doubt weary from your travels," she said. "Allow me to show you to your room." I followed her through passages illuminated by guttering torches, catching glimpses of hidden corridors and crooked stairwells. The swirling gloom pressed inward, but Lady Eveline's presence seemed to glide through it as though she were part of the darkness itself. She led me to a cozy chamber whose window overlooked the raging sea. A stone hearth crackled with fire, casting dancing shapes across the walls. "Rest well," she whispered. "Perhaps in the morning you will find the answers you seek." Then she receded into the shadows, the tail of her red gown disappearing into the corridor's mild darkness. I stood there, my mind abuzz. The sight of their pale features, their timeless attire, and the reluctance to eat or speak of their history fanned the flames of my curiosity. The sound of relentless thunder rattled the window panes, and an unsettling sensation of being watched prickled at my senses. Hanging on the wall was yet another portrait, a young man whose face closely resembled Ambrose's. According to the small brass plaque affixed to the frame, it was painted 2 centuries earlier, yet the subject's eyes, shape of his jaw, and even the wave of his hair were identical to the nobleman I had just dined with. My pulse raced. I had arrived seeking local legends, but was I prepared for the stunning possibility that these stories might be true? Sleep proved elusive. The storm raged on, punctuated by occasional eerie silences in which I imagined I heard faint footsteps padding outside my door. At times, I fancied I heard whispers, as though unseen figures were huddled close, discussing my presence. Twice, I rose from my bed, pressing my ear against the wood, but nothing stirred beyond. Eventually, drowsiness overcame me. I awoke before dawn, compelled by an urgent thirst for fresh answers. Gray light seeped through the window, revealing a calmer sky, though thick clouds still loomed overhead. I decided to explore the corridors on my own. My footsteps were light as I retraced the path Lady Eveline had taken the previous night, but I soon lost my bearings amid winding hallways. Here and there, torches smoldered in their sconces, painting the walls in a sickly amber glow. The floor plan of the castle twisted and turned as though it had been designed to confound intruders, and perhaps to imprison them. At length I stumbled upon a grand salon, its windows shrouded by heavy burgundy drapes. In the dim corners I spied ghostly outlines of furniture draped under sheets, and a musty odor hung in the air. A single tapestry caught my eye. It depicted a moonlit ceremony, robed figures kneeling before a bejeweled chalice in the presence of a pale-faced noble. Vines embroidered into the margins of the tapestry seemed to writhe in the flickering light. A voice spoke behind me. "Remarkable craftsmanship, is it not?" I turned to find Lady Eveline standing in the doorway, her head tilted in a subtle gesture of curiosity. "That tapestry has hung here for generations, passed down from the earliest lords of this estate," she said. She moved into the room, and her footsteps were strangely silent, as though the floor did not deign to groan beneath her. Her penetrating gaze flicked to me. "You must have many questions, but only one truly matters to you." The intensity of her presence unsettled me. "Why do they call you the family that never ages?" I asked softly. I expected deflection, but Eveline's expression became momentarily vulnerable, a flicker of regret in her dark eyes. She caressed the edge of the tapestry, her voice dropping to a hush. "We are bound by a curse older than any of us. It grants us youth everlasting, but at a terrible cost." A tremor of both fascination and dread rippled through me. I wondered if it was the time to press her further or to retreat. Then Ambrose appeared, stepping gracefully from a side corridor. "Eveline," he murmured, "let us not frighten our guest with legends." He offered a warm smile, but I saw fleeting tension in his gaze. "Come. Our father wishes for us to join him. We will entertain you this evening properly. There is much he wishes to reveal." I wondered if their father truly had revelations to share, or if this was but another brush-off. Still, I nodded politely and followed, drawn deeper into the labyrinthine castle. The morning hours passed in strange lull, as neither Ambrose nor anyone else ventured to converse with me further. That evening, I was invited into an opulent drawing room, tall mirrors, laden side tables, and a chandelier shimmering with 100 tiny flames. There I found the family assembled: Ambrose, Eveline, the Baron, and another figure I had yet to meet, a slender man with ash-blonde hair who introduced himself as Rowan, a distant cousin. In the midst of small talk, I detected a strange tension, a hunger in their gazes. They took turns looking at me surreptitiously, as though I were something prized yet dangerous to handle. The conversation blurred, and I felt the blood thrumming in my veins in a way I never had before. At last, the Baron set aside his half-finished goblet, licked his lips, and addressed me directly. "You seek to understand why we remain untouched by time." He motioned for me to join him by the fireplace. I obeyed, feeling the warmth of the flames lick at my damp clothes. His voice was as smooth as sin, weaving a story that pulled me in as the hush of the room settled around us. "Many centuries ago," he said, "our ancestor was mortally wounded in a distant land. In his desperation, he made a bargain with a wandering sorcerer. In exchange for eternal vitality, he was to devote himself to a blood oath. He returned home, unscathed from what should have been a fatal blow, and the secret of his perpetual youth soon spread throughout the land." The Baron paused. His voice weighed with the gravity of confession, yet such a blessing was a double-edged sword. Though one retains the bloom of youth, the body craves more blood to sustain its unnatural longevity. Once each moon cycle, the thirst becomes unbearable. We learned to control it, to keep our domain remote far from prying eyes. I should have recoiled in horror, but I felt an inexplicable fascination. My heart thundered like the storm outside. "You drink human blood?" My voice cracked on the last word. The family members watched me intently. Ambrose averted his eyes. Lady Eveline's lips parted as though she were about to speak, but she merely let out a soft breath. I detected the tightness in Rowan's posture, possibly shame or hunger. "Yes," the Baron said, quietly. "We're not proud of this curse, but it has been our reality for generations. We feed sparingly, ensuring the safety of our village. We see to it that no one disappears under suspicious circumstances. But the thirst can never be wholly suppressed." Unbidden, my mind roiled with images of atrocities that might have unfolded in the castle's hidden recesses. My instincts promised that while they cultivated an air of genteel civility, there was a lurking darkness at their core. Yet some desperate part of me clung to curiosity. I had wanted to bear witness to the secrets that surrounded this place. Now I stood at the precipice of something far more dreadful than I had anticipated. The night wore on. Silence reigned as the storm resumed beyond the stained-glass windows. Finally, the Baron called upon Ambrose, whose expression was grim yet resolved. They stepped aside, conversing in hushed tones while Eveline hovered near my chair. I felt her presence behind me, an intangible aura of anticipation. "Do you wish to depart with your life and your sanity?" she asked, her voice an intimate murmur that inflamed my terror. "I can guide you away from here before the next feeding, but you will forfeit any knowledge you have sought." My initial urge was to cling to her offer and escape, But a stubborn ambition flared within me. Perhaps it was madness, but I wanted to lay eyes on that horrifying ritual, to understand entirely this ancient curse. "I must see it," I whispered, trembling. "I came for the truth. I want to witness it for myself." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she gave an almost imperceptible nod, a sadness crossing her face. "So be it. You shall have your wish." A dreadful understanding passed between us. Within the hour, I found myself led to a candlelit corridor, descending into the bowels of the castle. Its air cold and stale, reminiscent of untouched crypts. The flicker of the torches revealed heavy stone walls streaked with rivulets of moisture. Each step deeper intensified the sense of claustrophobia, and once or twice I thought I spotted shapes sliding just out of view. We reached an arched chamber, its walls carved with script I could not decipher, and lit by guttering braziers that cast violent shadows. Several tall chairs, like thrones, stood in a semicircle around the center of the room, which was marked by a circular altar of black marble. A chill that had nothing to do with the temperature swept over me. Ambrose, Eveline, Rowan, and the Baron positioned themselves with somber ceremony. They gestured for me to remain at the periphery of the space, out of immediate danger, yet close enough to see. From the darkness stepped two of their servants, escorting a figure whose wrists were manacled and bound. It was a stranger, a trespasser, or possibly some unfortunate wretch they had waylaid on a lonely road. He spat curses, his voice echoing with terror, but his words fell on deaf ears. My stomach lurched. Had I gone too far by asking to see this? The Baron inclined his head to his family, and in seamless unison they approached the prisoner. Their eyes glowed with a predatory intensity. The captive was forced to his knees upon the black marble. Lightning flared through a distant grate or window above, as if the storm itself bore witness to what transpired. With unsettling grace, Ambrose lowered his face until his lips hovered near the victim's neck. Then, an agonized scream tore through the chamber as the feeding commenced. Eveline, Rowan, and even the Baron followed suit, each siphoning some portion of the hot, spilling life. My heart hammered. I felt sweat bead on my brow, and a tremor spread through my limbs. I was so transfixed by the hideous spectacle that my better sense deserted me. Blood trickled down their chins, staining their sophisticated garments. And yet, there was an unholy beauty in the ritual, something archaic, a dance of savage grace. They did not gorge themselves in mindless frenzy. Rather, they fed solemnly, as if performing a sacred rite. At last, they pulled away, gasping with equal measures of relief and sorrow. Ambrose turned to me, his face smeared with a crimson mask. His voice held a hollow note. "We are sated. For now." Then, the manacled man slumped forward, precariously close to death. "He will be tended to," said the Baron. "We do not discard life. We take only what is necessary for our survival, and we bear the curse of that necessity. What shape that tending would take, I could not imagine." The wretch's fate remained uncertain, and a coil of horror twisted in my gut. In the days that followed, the family became strangely open, perhaps out of gratitude that I had not run screaming, or perhaps because no visitor had come so willingly close to their darkest secret. They revealed bits of what their earlier centuries had entailed. They had tried many times to break the curse, searching dusty occult tomes, contacting mystics, even venturing into risky rituals under full moons. Each attempt had either failed or brought further misfortune. Their thirst endured. Eveline in particular lingered near me. She seemed torn between self-loathing and the allure of my living warmth. At night I would catch her at my door, a silent sentry to both protect and observe me. When she spoke, it was sometimes to lament. "All my friends grew old and died," she confessed one night, speaking in a hushed breath. "I stayed the same, always watching, always apart. Love withers in the face of immortality. No one remains to hold your memories." Despite the horror I had witnessed, an odd empathy took root in me. This was no simple monster. There was a lifetime's-long sorrow corroding her spirit. But the others were not so easily read. Rowan's eyes occasionally blazed with fresh hunger. The Baron carried himself with dignified acceptance, as if he had long ago reconciled with his deeds. Ambrose stood between them, earnest yet resigned. It was on the fourth night that everything changed. The storm unleashed all its fury, shattering window panes and sending water surging into lower chambers. Flickering torches cast the corridors in stuttering shadows, while thunder boomed like cannon fire above. The villagers below had evidently chosen this night to storm the castle. Driven by old superstitions or fresh suspicions, a mob brandishing flaming torches and pitchforks rushed the gates. Cries of "Monsters!" and "Devils!" pierced the gale. The family assembled in the main hall, stoic as the thunderous pounding resounded against the castle's doors. Ambrose turned to me, a haunted plea in his eyes. "We have little choice but to defend ourselves," he said. "No matter what we do, they will not be satisfied until they see our blood spatter the walls. It matters not that we are centuries removed from the true horrors of our past. We are damned in the eyes of man." Before I could respond, the doors burst open under the combined weight of men's shoulders, and a rush of cold wind swept inside, along with the breakers of rain. The mob advanced, faces contorted in rage and fear. With a sorrowful determination, the Baron stepped forward. "I say to you, let there be no bloodshed," he commanded, raising a hand. "We have no desire to harm you." But his words fanned their fury. "Bloodsuckers!" came the roars. A man hurled a torch, igniting a tapestry along the wall. Immediately, flames danced up the fabric, smoke pluming into the air. The watchers advanced closer, brandishing their weapons. Chaos erupted. Rowan bared his teeth, lunging at one of the intruders, and screams sliced through the din. Ambrose tried to restrain him, but a sword came slashing toward them in the confusion. Meanwhile, Eveline grabbed my arm. "We must leave," she gasped, pulling me toward a hidden passage behind the main staircase. Flames licked across the banisters, and thick smoke threatened to choke us. The thunder's roar mingled with the panicked cries of men and the family's desperate efforts to survive. We emerged into a narrow corridor carved in stone, the clamoring of the battle still echoing behind. Eveline pressed her forehead against the cold wall, anguish etched into her features. "I cannot do this again," she murmured, tears streaking her cheeks. "Every time we attempt to live quietly, the world hunts us down." From the next room, I heard the clang of steel and the savage roars of a primal struggle. In a surge of resolve, Eveline turned to me. "You can escape," she said. "Follow this corridor until it opens onto the cliffs. There is a path, though treacherous. Save yourself." I peered past her, glimpsing a faint glow at the passage's end. My heart twisted. I felt a bizarre urge to stay, to help. Yet what could I do against an enraged mob? The castle was ablaze, the family's fate uncertain. "What of you?" I demanded. "Will you not come?" She shook her head sadly. "Our bond is sealed. If we flee, we will merely wander aimlessly until we settle in yet another forsaken corner. The same cycle will repeat. But you still have a life to live. Depart and carry this tale. Perhaps find a way to break this curse, if such a way exists." A sob rattled her chest. "Go!" Her command propelled me forward. Smoke stung my eyes, but I hurried through the gloom, feet sliding on wet stone. The walls shook with the force of the raging tempest outside. Behind me, the frantic symphony of shouts and crackling flames intensified. A final glance showed Eveline's silhouette dissolving into the darkness, back toward the inferno where her family resisted the mob's wrath. The corridor opened onto a narrow ledge overlooking the raging sea. Rain pelted my face as I clutched the rocky wall. Step by step, I navigated the perilous path. The wind whipped at my hair, threatening to plunge me into the churning waters below. Lightning streaked the sky, and I turned back only once to see the castle perched atop the cliff, its windows shimmering with hellish fire. Against the storm-swept horizon, the proud fortress looked like the lair of ancient gods, locked in cosmic battle. Below, the path wound its way down to the beach cove. By the time I reached the sand, my legs trembled with exertion, my lungs burned. I gazed up at the castle, fear and awe mingling in my spirit. The clangor from above gradually faded beneath the crashing waves. I could not discern which side had triumphed. Perhaps the villagers had purged the accursed inhabitants, or perhaps the family had escaped once more into the sprawling gloom of distant lands. My mind reeled as I recalled the image of them feeding, the piteous truth of their existence. Even now, with the dawn's gray wash creeping across the sky, I cannot escape the memory of their pale faces and their haunted eyes. Their secret weighs upon me as heavily as the knowledge that had drawn me there in the first place. If I speak of them, many will dismiss it as delirium, a tale too grotesque to believe. Yet I know that, somewhere, those eternally youthful lords and ladies endure, bound to an ancient debt of blood. Their haunted forms might walk beneath moonlight, scattered across lonely roads or hidden mansions, seeking to quench their unholy thirst for survival. Or, perhaps, they lie buried among the castle's smoking ruins, awaiting the day their curse reawakens them. I move on now, carrying both horror and pity in my soul. Inside these mortal veins of mine, I carry a secret far darker than any fairy tale. Through nightmares and half-lit evenings, I will recall the hush of the feasting chamber, the storm-blasted windows, and the trembling flicker of the candles. Indeed, my curiosity was sated beyond all measure. Yet the echoes of that dark thirst follow me, a subtle reminder that not all who wear the mask of youth are free from the cruelty of time. And if, on some distant night, I should once again glimpse a pale aristocrat standing beneath a gathering of thunderclouds, I will know the family's tale is not yet finished. They remain out there, unmasked but concealed, forever hungry beneath the mask of eternal youth.